The Tennessee Titans should not trade for Kyle Pitts unless the price is right. That and more on today's edition of Locked On Titans.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Titans fans, today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. On today's show, I'm going to be answering some of your questions. I got some mailbag questions from the YouTube crowd. We're going to talk about some potential trades for the Titans. Kyle Pitts, Trey Hendrickson, could they make those moves? Also, we're going to talk about why it's okay to have a little bit of hesitation with training camp hype, but as a fan, you should be excited. And we'll talk a little bit about my origins as a Tennessee Titans fan, as I like to answer every offseason. But before we dive into all of that, I do want to thank you for making Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. You're not going to beat that anywhere else. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day. Speaking of every day, shout out to my everydayers out there. Tuning in Monday through Friday. Couldn't do it without you guys. If you aren't an everydayer, you need to be one. Mandatory minicamp is next week. We're going to have 3 open practices for the Tennessee Titans, and I'm going to be breaking them all down with you guys. So make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. Again, it's your team every day here on the Locked On Titans podcast. But with that being said, first question that I have here comes from Titans Two-Step, and it says, should the Tennessee Titans trade for Kyle Pitts? So I've heard a lot of conversation about Kyle Pitts being available for trade, just generally speaking from covering the NFL for Locked On NFL, and we've talked a lot about that. But the Titans as an opportunity or as a landing spot for Kyle Pitts, I think when I look at it, or just initial look at it, it just doesn't make a lot of sense for the Titans. One, I think the reality here is, and it's something that I said online at Tic Tac Titans, but Kyle Pitts hasn't been that much better than Chig Okonkwo. Like, Kyle Pitts has had 600 receiving yards or so the last couple of years. Chig Okonkwo has clocked in right around 500 the last couple of years. I think that Kyle Pitts is a matchup tight end with great speed and ability, but he's not a great blocker. He's not a super physical guy. Now he's a little bit taller than Chig Okonkwo at 6'6", 246, but he's not a significantly bigger player than Chig Okonkwo in terms of his physicality, like as a blocker. Like, it's not like he has a tremendous size advantage that's going to allow him to be a blocker. Kyle Pitts is what he's always been, just a big wide receiver. And quite frankly, Chig Okonkwo is just a big wide receiver. That's really all he is. Chig has never taken that next step as a certified reliable blocker, and neither has Kyle Pitts. You look at their statistics, again, outside of Kyle Pitts' rookie season, where he went for 1,000 yards and got 110 targets. Other than that, 28 catches, 356 yards, 53 catches, 667 yards. Last year, 47 catches, 602 yards. Like, that's simply not that much better than Chig Okonkwo, who was a 5th-round pick. Kyle Pitts was a top 5 pick. Think Chig in his 3 seasons, the last 3 seasons, 32 for 450, 3 touchdowns, 54 for 528, 1 touchdown, 52 for 479, 2 touchdowns. Quite frankly, Chig Okonkwo is one of the most accomplished tight ends in Tennessee Titans history already. Like, he's just a couple of 100 yards away from going over guys like Jared Cook and stuff like that, who have been Algie Crumpler, guys who were here for longer, who you would think like, oh, Chig Okonkwo is good. Like, Chig Okonkwo is about to pass Jonnu Smith. I continued to say when conversations about Chig Okonkwo were happening last year, you can't be somebody who loves Jonnu Smith but hates Chig Okonkwo. It just doesn't make any sense at all. It doesn't make any sense. Chig Okonkwo has maybe not hit the heights that we expected, but 500 yards a season, 50 catches a season, a couple of touchdowns, like, that's a really solid role-playing tight end. So why would the Titans go out and trade a 3rd-round pick for Kyle Pitts, who's on the last year of his contract, Why would you give up a third-round pick for a rental of Kyle Pitts when you have Kyle Pitts at home? Now, here's what I would say to you. Chigakonkwo has this year on his deal remaining, last year of his rookie contract. This is the 5th year of Kyle Pitts. It'll be the last year of his contract. If Atlanta was like, hey, we'll give you a 7th-round pick and Kyle Pitts, you give us a 5th-round pick and Chigakonkwo, a 6th-round pick and Chigakonkwo, I might do something like that. I'm not giving up a full draft pick and just I'm not doing Chigakonkwo and a 6th just for Kyle Pitts. Now, I'd probably do Chigakonkwo and a 7th for Kyle Pitts because whatever. Kyle Pitts, at the end of the day, is a more talented player than Chigakonkwo. He's got softer hands. Chig has had some drop issues. He's had 12 drops in his 3 years. I think it was 3, 6, and 3 in the year. So Kyle Pitts is a guy who has softer hands. He is a taller player and a longer player. Chig is 6'3", 240. Kyle Pitts is 6'6", 240. Like, he's a longer, and maybe matchup in the red zone, matchup situations, you can isolate Kyle Pitts. He gives you a little bit more. So would I pay a 3rd-round pick for that? No, absolutely not. Would I do some sort of late pick swap and swap Chig and Pitts if Atlanta just wants to save a little bit of money because Kyle Pitts is more expensive, but the Titans can afford to bring on a player that's more expensive, get a look at him in the offense and decide if we want to keep you around for a reduced rate going forward? And then Kyle Pitts leaves, gets a contract. The Titans could still get a compensatory pick back, which was better than the pick that they gave up. There are a lot of avenues here based on the price. That's my point, really. If the price is right for the Titans, which I outlined some of what the price would be right for me. If the price is right, then sure, I would do a Kyle Pitts trade, and I would get a look at him because him and Chigakonkwo are going to play similar roles. He just gives you a little more size, which may, in terms of height and length, which may be what Brian Callahan is looking for. Think about the tight end that's doing really well in Cincinnati right now, Mike Gesicki. So if you have a guy like Gunnar Helm, who can maybe be a little bigger, stronger, physical, and then you have your Mike Gesicki type tight end and Kyle Pitts, maybe that would work. Again, if the price is right, I would do it. If it was basically a free swap, I would do it. But I'm not giving up 3rd, 4th round pick or anything like that for a guy like Kyle Pitts when you have Chigakonkwo. Both are on the last year of their contract, so there's no extra team control. And Kyle Pitts is recovering from an injury, which I think that might be coming from Kyle Pitts' camp because he doesn't want to be traded. You know what I mean? That may be something that factors in there. Just, saying. But at the end of the day, again, Kyle Pitts, I'm interested in the skill set, in the player, but the price has to be really, really enticing for the Titans to even consider this. Otherwise, I'm not interested because Chigakonkwo is good enough for what he's getting paid and not giving up a draft pick where I'd just roll with him for the season and see what happens. But with that being said, what about some other trades? Trey Hendrickson on the defensive line. Could there be a Jeffrey Simmons, Trey Hendrickson swap? Can't wait to continue answering your guys' questions on today's mailbag. Do want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. All right, listen, guys. You're budgeting, trying to make sure that you're not overspending, you're keeping track of everything. Because I know for me personally, I've checked my bank account before and been like, where did all my money go? I mean, dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track, but that's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You could track all your accounts, investments, spending, all in one place. Stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Personally, I didn't realize just how much money I was spending on online shopping. Now I can budget smarter and I can save more with the Monarch Money app. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Titans fans, let's continue today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We talked about my thoughts on a Kyle Pitts trade. Again, I'm not completely against it, but at the same time, it would have to be a very advantageous price for the Tennessee Titans for me to actually make that move. But hey, I'm not going to say it's impossible, and I'm not going to say that I absolutely wouldn't do it. It just depends on the price, which, let's be honest with ourselves, that's about everything in life, right? Hey, I'd probably do it depending on the price. You know, hey, I don't want a Ferrari right now, but if it were free, I'd probably take the Ferrari, right? And then sell it anyway. But whatever. We're getting too deep in the weeds. Want to continue answering your guys' mailbag question. Thanks again for making Locked On Titans your first listen. Kevin Hammer says, appreciate your hard work year round. My question for you is, with the Titans probably not all the way ready to compete, is this the year we move on from Big Jeff? Pretty disappointing in him not showing up to OTAs. Might be time for a change and get off that contract. Appreciate your time. Thanks, Kevin. Ty Kane had another question similar to this. Trade Jeff to Cincinnati for their holdout defensive end, Trey Hendrickson. Extending 3 years, $100 million, $50 guaranteed. Cincinnati can get a guy that is cheaper and under contract for 3 years, plus we need a DN. Sounds good. TYPT7EY said, sounds like a robot from Star Wars. Do you think there's a chance the Titans acquire Trey Hendrickson? What would it look like? Can we afford it? Does he fit? So I'll go backwards here. I don't think the Titans acquire Trey Hendrickson, quite frankly, giving up draft picks and giving a big-time contract to a 30-year-old defensive end, even a guy as good as Trey Hendrickson. I don't think that's a smart move for where the Titans are at. Again, trading for Trey Hendrickson and extending him 3 years, $100 million, $50 million guaranteed. I don't even know if that would get the job done. Myles Garrett and Max Crosby just got $40 million per season. I think after leading the NFL in sacks 2 years in a row, Trey Hendrickson is not going to take $33 million per season. Trey Hendrickson wants 40, and you're going to have to give him $60, $70 million guaranteed. So I don't think that your I don't think that your ballpark price is in the right area, which means I'm not doing it. You know, I can't give up a second round pick to get Trey Hendrickson at 30 years old and expect that he's going to continue leading the NFL in sacks the next few years. You can't pay the guy based on what he's done before. You got to pay for what you think he's going to do going forward. And I'm just simply not in the business of doing that. Now, with Big Jeff, if I could just trade Big Jeff for Trey Hendrickson straight up, yeah, I'd probably have to consider doing that. But I don't think that's going to be something the Bengals want to do. They don't want to pay Trey Hendrickson, so they're not going to take on Jeffrey Simmons' contract when they don't want to pay that. And with Big Jeff, man, I got to get into the middle of the season here and see where the Titans are at. If the Titans get to week 10 or their week 10 bye and they're clearly not going to make the playoffs, then yeah, well, week 10, that's probably too late, right? Trade deadline is the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, I think. That might be late enough. Well, I don't think so. I think it's a little before that. But if the Titans get to the trade deadline and it's clear that they aren't going to make the playoffs, then yes, I think they need to trade Jeffrey Simmons for as many day 2 picks as they can possibly get. I just don't think he fits the timeline of where they're going if they don't turn it around quickly this year. If they come out, 2-5, 3-6, 3-7, something like that, then yeah, it's probably time to trade Jeffrey Simmons. Moving forward, Ladies Man 27, is this Sam Witwicky or what? Hard to get hype about camp after Arden Key's 7 sacks a few years ago. So Ladies Man 27 was just saying he's going to have a hard time being excited during training camp because a couple of years ago, remember Arden Key had 7 sacks in a day. Well, that sounds great, but it was just against Andre Dillard, and the Titans' pass rush wasn't that good, and the Titans' offensive line was terrible. So with that in mind, it's hard to get too excited about training camp. Listen, Ladies Man, this is what I'm going to say. This is an area where I think that I've grown as a content creator and as the host of the show, and just, honestly, just my growth as a person. I think for a long time, my thought process was don't get too excited about things, because then you're going to feel disappointed when they don't work out. But here's the reality of the pessimistic mindset, which I know a lot about. Expecting bad things doesn't make you feel better when they happen. Just because I say, I think the Titans are going to lose. I think the Titans are going to lose. When they do lose, I love to be like, see, I knew they were going to lose. I knew that, no big deal, they were going to lose. But that's a lie. That's a lie. I can tell you, I think the Titans are going to lose. But I'm still just as mad when they lose as I am when I think they're going to win. Pretending like being pessimistic, cushions the blow of disappointment, it's a lie. It's a lie I told myself for a long time in my life. That if I just expect disappointment, I won't be as upset when the disappointment happens. And it's not true. Deep down inside, no matter what your expectations are, when you feel disappointed, you feel disappointed. So with that in mind, here's what I'm going to say to all of you listening. Be excited. Get excited. You always have to understand that just because you're excited or you want something to happen, it doesn't mean that's going to happen. But there is no reward for pessimism. There is none. It's taken me a long time in my life to realize that, but there is no reward for pessimism. There isn't. So get excited, man. Be excited about your and at the end of the day, why do you care about professional football? It's just take some of the brunt of worrying about bills and kids and stress and school and, the existential crisis that we have as human beings in a world where we have no answers for our existence. Why not just be happy and excited and joyous and just, why not? That's where I'm at these days in my life. I know that's a bit, over the treetops there, but man, I know that we've been disappointed before, but just get excited about training camp. Who cares? Just be excited. Anyways, CKYTEP, a lot of you guys with alphabet names today, says Callahan has talked about the importance of QBs making aggressive game-changing plays. It seems that those really bad plays Levis made early last season, like the disaster pitch to Spears, were just gambles that didn't go his way. If they did, we may have had a completely different quarterback conversation. Instead, Levis was reprimanded to never attempt such things again. Is it a stretch to think that putting that short of a leash that early in Levis's career was a mistake? I see Callahan yelling at him way too early, nailing the what makes Levis Levis coffin. Listen, I understand that mindset, but Will Levis didn't just make normal mistakes where you give a quarterback. He made mind-numbing, game-altering, team-destroying, world-ending mistakes. So I am not mad about the short leash that Callahan had on Will Levis. Quite frankly, the leash could have been shorter with how egregious Will Levis's mistakes are. So again, I know that people love to kind of defend Will Levis. There are people out there that love to do that, but I'm sorry, we can blame all the other things. And you're right, Callahan was not good. The roster was bad. The O-line, yes. But Will Levis, of his own making, made some of the worst football mistakes I've ever seen. I watch middle school and high school and college and pro football every week. And Will Levis made the worst plays I saw all year at any level. So, I'm sorry, I can't give too much of a pass to Will Levis here. Rex Green said, Albert Hainsworth asserts that the Titans D-line were asked to move sideways too much last year. Your thoughts? Well, I understand that, Rex, but here's what I would say. When you have no edge rush, when you're getting zero pressure from the edge, how are you going to generate pressure? Tavondre Sweat and Jeffrey Simmons can push the pocket forward, but if you have no edge presence, then the quarterback can just get out, or the quarterback can slide through the holes where the edge rushers are creating because they aren't getting any pressure. So the reason that the Titans did as much movement up front as they did is because they couldn't just rush four guys and get pressure. One-on-one, win your matchup. They had to do stunts, twists, extra blitzes, send an extra man, bring a linebacker, bring a cornerback. They had to do a bunch more because they simply were not getting any production whatsoever from their edge rushers. I know you could say Harold Landry had 9 sacks, but go look at his down-to-down efficiency in the pass rush. He was not getting consistent pressure, and that's why his pressure rate was one of the worst in the NFL last year. He was out there a ton, and he just was not getting pressure, even if he got lucky cleanup sacks. Ripjaw says, do you think Cam Ward's blind side is safe? Listen, you guys know I have my doubts about Dan Moore, but Dan Moore is definitely a better pass blocker than he is a run blocker, so I hope. David Youssef says, do you think we'll learn more about Cam from the Falcons or the Bucs joint practice? I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have a better defense overall, so I'll say Tampa Bay. David also said, could we use Levis like Taysom Hill? Nah, he's not that talented of a runner. I know he did some stuff like that in college, but no. And then the top 3 most recognizable former Titans in media, it's got to be Taylor Lewan and Will Compton. And then I think you had it right, the McCourty brothers. I'll put both of them in there, Devin as well. So the McCourty brothers are probably the next ones, I would say. Johnny Blaze says, Ty Davis Price at running back. Yeah, I told you guys. I thought the Titans would add another veteran to the running back room. They get rid of Micah Bernard, the undrafted free agent. They bring in another veteran and Ty Davis Price. I don't think Ty Davis Price is a lock to make the roster or anything like that, but it just shows what I meant. The Titans are going to continue to use their waiver claim and add players to the roster as free agent signings, and I think the Titans are going to churn the back end of the roster a bit, and I think Ty Davis Price has a better chance of making this roster than Julius Chestnut does, in my opinion. So it may not be Ty Davis Price. It may be. But I think the Titans will certainly have another veteran in there when it's time to actually get things done. Next question here comes from, let me see, my guy Martin6. He says, mailbag first. Saludos desde Montevideo, Uruguay. Hey, thank you so much for tuning in. He said, sharing the jersey color, light blue or Titan blue for him is La Nuestra es la Celeste. I hope I'm saying that right. La Nuestra es la Celeste. It's light blue, Titan blue. Second, he says, tell us your team, offense, defense you have to start the season. Well, Cam Ward, Tony Pollard, Dan Moore, Peter Skoronski, Lloyd Cushenberry, Kevin Zeitler, J.C. Latham, Calvin Ridley, Tyler Lockett, and I think Van Jefferson gets the start, although I hope it's Alec Iomanner. And then Gunnar Helm, I think, starts at tight end on defense. You have Sweat and Simmons. You have Key and I think Draymond Jones starting on the outside and nickel. Then you'll have Cody Barton and James Williams is who I'm going with as the second starting inside linebacker, and then Snead, McCreary, Jarvis Brownlee Jr., Xavier Woods, and Amani Hooker. But that would be my starters right there. But with that being said, you guys sent in some cool questions about how I became a Titans fan and stuff like that. So excited to answer those right now. Titans fans, let's cap off today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast, doing a little bit of a mailbag for you guys on YouTube. Try to keep it fair, you know. I always ask Twitter for the mailbag questions. Want to make sure that I get your guys' questions in as well here on YouTube. But with that being said, Daryl had a question. He said, if there was one thing you could have done differently in the Titans 2025 draft, what would it have been? I'm going to say maybe not draft Marcus Harris, I guess, but I don't know. I can't complain about the late dart throws. Like, it's just hard for me to complain about that in any way. Houston Sproles says, as a lifelong Titans fan who mostly stayed on the periphery, what are the best ways, resources to deepen my knowledge of the team? He says, I'm a Tennessee guy, but have only really paid close attention to things like offseason moves and roster construction recently. Would love to be more knowledgeable about the team through the decades. So Justin Mello, who I've had on the show before, he writes about the Titans. He wrote a book called Titans of the South. and it chronicles every single season in team history, shows their roster, big moments. It is truly a great piece of work that any Tennessee Titans fan should have. So my answer to anybody who wants to learn more about the history of the Tennessee Titans up to this point, check out Titans of the South by Justin Mello. Great piece of writing there. A ton of good research. Also, YouTube is your best friend. Go YouTube 2021 Titans, Super Bowl run Titans. There are old NFL films, episodes that are 30 minutes that cover teams, America's Game episodes, stuff like that, team capsules, just YouTube, different years, different players. Go watch a Chris Johnson highlight reel. Go watch Steve McNair's highlight reel and stuff like that. Vince Young's was awesome. Go check it out. I promise. I'll always cape for Vince Young, no matter what. But yeah, that would be my best advice to you, Houston Sproles. Houston Sproles also had another question here, though, that he asked, and it kind of gets us into some of the stuff that I want to talk about here. He says, it was super cool to see the Titans use your soundbite in one of their rookie promo videos. What have been the top moments of your career covering the Titans where you felt like you really made it? And then he said top 3 football beers. I'm not going to lie to you, Houston. I'm not a big beer drinker. I like Lost Coast Tangerine Wheat is good. I love a good Miller Lite. You know what I mean? I'm going down a river playing golf. I'll drink a Busch Light. I'm not a beer snob. I don't like IPAs, stuff like that. I like Hefeweizens, like citrus wheat beers and stuff. But I prefer cocktails. Give me a gin and tonic. Give me an old-fashioned whiskey and gin. If I'm drinking, that's what I'm going to go with. But as for, but I don't really like to drink, if I'm honest with you. I'm not a big drinker, so it's kind of just situational for me. But I will tell you some moments in my career that have really made me like, wow, I can't believe it. Going to the combine and asking Brian Callahan a question and then seeing my question be brought up on a bunch of other different Titans content, like Brian Callahan's answer to my question, that was one of those moments where it's like, I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing here. I ask good questions. I'm a pro. All right. Also, I guess the first time I hit 1 million views on YouTube, it was crazy. 1 million views in a single year. I had 3 million views a couple of years ago. I get more now. I mean, it's more now, but the first time I saw that happen, I was really scared to go on YouTube. And it worked out great. I've had a few cool interviews that really made me feel pretty good. But I will tell you, having my voice, if you haven't seen it, the Titans put out a big, long video on their YouTube going over the rookies. They put out a trailer for it a couple of days ago. My voice is in it saying Jackson Slater. I'm the guy saying Jackson Slater in the thing. And it's just cool to have my content recognized by the team. I've had some conversations with the Titans directly recently that were cool. But yeah, going to the combine, Kevin Byard retweeted some of my film stuff one time. That was really cool. And then I went to a game at the Indianapolis Colts Stadium. That's close to me. And I had a few people recognize me and stop and ask me for pictures, autographs. I've had people recognize me in Nashville when I've made trips there as well. Stuff like that still, it's surreal to me because, again, I was homeless at 16. I had a very rough, childhood. I had to drop out of college because I ran out of money. I had my struggles in my early 20s with things. I was irresponsible and couldn't get my life on track, had no money, was, just my life was, I didn't think that I'd ever get to live my dream this way. So all these little things that have happened to me, some of them are really like, wow, I just can't believe it. You know what I mean? And I know I have haters out there who say I'm not this and I'm not that. And, you'll never be this and that. And I just don't care. I'm happy. I'm happy, right? I'm happy. So it's crazy. So anyways, that's the ultimate win, guys. Is just be happy. People are going to always have something to say. Lethal Latin says, when are you going to make the move to get your physical eyes on your favorite team? Miss Amy would surely give you a media pass. So I get asked this question a lot. I think a lot of people who ask me in bad faith. They want to point out that I'm not on the beat. I'm not from Nashville. And they do it as a way to kind of try to put my content down. But here's the truth, guys. I'm happy. Like, I live close to my family. I have a very big group of friends that I've been friends with since I was in school, like 15, 20 dudes. We go on golf trips. We're in fantasy football leagues. We have cookouts and bowling events. And like, I'm just happy, you know, and I just bought a house recently. I have a studio in my house. Like, I grew up so poor. I never thought I would even live in a house that I live in right now. So I'm just like, I'm so content with my life. And here's the truth. Nothing about my content, for the most part, would improve from me being there. The reality is aggregation is the media game now. Like, I don't need to be there. I aggregate reports. Like, that is the game. The Titans post their press conferences on YouTube. Why do I need to sell my house, move to a super expensive, way worse cost of living city in Nashville, have a worse house, uproot my life, move away from my friends and family to not make any more money and to not have any more information than what I have now? Would it be cool to see everybody in person? And would it help my social media following to take my own videos? And, you can't having conversations with people inside the building. Would I be more knowledgeable about the team? You could maybe make that argument, certainly. But the reality is the quality of life drop that it would be for me to move away from where I am right now. I'm not willing to do it. I've been offered it. When I wrote for Sports Illustrated, I was offered to be on the beat and move to Nashville and do all that. I'm sure I could message someone now and say, hey, I'm moving to Nashville. Let me write for you. I could do that. I just don't want to. The content is great. I'd rather focus on the film, which is what I'm passionate about. So maybe one day, but for right now, it's just not something that I'm super interested in. And finally, K. Martin says, how did you become a Titans fan? I like to answer this every so often because a lot of people ask. I'm from Ohio. I'm from Dayton, Ohio, born and raised, and I love Ohio State football. I loved Eddie George as a kid. I wanted to be a running back. I wanted the ball. I was short, chubby, and slow for my peewee football experience. Once I hit puberty, I got really fast, so I got to actually eventually be running back in middle school and high school. But when I was young, I was not fast. I was slow and chubby, and it was rough. So I saw Eddie George run with power and strength and physicality, and I'm like, okay, you don't have to be a speedster. And it's funny because Eddie George was still fast. But seeing Eddie George win the Heisman at Ohio State, I already really liked Eddie George, and I rooted for Eddie George. So then the Titans show up, and they have brand new uniforms, and they're light blue, and there's red on them, and I love light blue and red together. I love it. Dayton Flyers, light blue and red, elite combo of colors. So red is my favorite color of all time. Fiery, aggressive, no doubt about it. Seeing red. But the light blue works so perfectly with it. So I love the jerseys. I loved Eddie George, so I'm in. And then the Music City Miracle happened. And I had never seen such a cool play in my life. I remember watching it live, sitting on the floor at my mom's apartment. Like, I remember it, Like yesterday, I remember seeing it and running around the house pretending to do it and being Kevin Dyson. And then Kevin Dyson became my favorite player because I did that play so many times and went out in the trampoline and dove into the end zone and, like all the stuff that a little 9-year-old kid does when he watches football. And the new jerseys and Eddie George and the Super Bowl run, and me and my brother wanted something fresh and new. I didn't want to like my dad's team. I didn't want to be I wanted to be my own man. You know what I mean? And all of that together, I said, this is my squad. And me and my brother, to this day, 25, 26 years later, still love our Titans, and I always will. But with that being said, that's going to do it for me today, folks. As always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans.